thumbs up. So let's begin. Hello and welcome to today's Cambridge University Press ELT webinar, How Much A Does EAP Cause Need? Presented by Robert McLarty. I'm Simon Wright from Cambridge University Press, and I'll be moderating today's session along with my colleagues Eve Lloyd and Sarah Stokes. This webinar is part of a series of academic webinars running from today until the 2nd of November. So to find further information, sign up to other talks, please visit cambridge.org/academic-english, where you'll see a box there advertising the conference to it. During the webinar today, you'll be able to hear our speaker and to see his slides, but you won't be able to see Robert himself. You won't need a microphone. And if you want to ask a question, please use the chat box you see on the right-hand side. And I'll make sure to put the questions to Robert at the end of the session during the scheduled question and answer session. The recording of today's webinar will be on the conference registration page a week or so after the talk. And the register button where you registered will be replaced by a watch again button in case you want to watch this again. You'll be able to download a certificate of attendance for today's webinar from a link that will appear on the screen towards the end of the webinar. So I'm very pleased to welcome Robert McLarty as today's presenter. Robert works as Principal Academic Staff Member at Waikato Institute of Technology, where he teaches EAP to international students who study tertiary education in New Zealand. He has previously worked in Paris and Oxford as a teacher trainer and school principal. He's the editor of Modern English Teacher and has written materials for OUP, CUP, Pearson and Richmond from 2004 to 2014. He was the publishing manager for ESP and EAP at OUP. So over to Robert.
Good morning, everybody. I think we might have a slight sound problem, but I'm doing the best I can from this end. So it's up to the guys in Cambridge to try and sort things out. Thank you very much for coming. It's really nice to be with you. It's the latest I've ever done anything in the evening. It's now 10:30 here in New Zealand, so I should be in bed. Anyway, I've fooled myself that I'm at the right time of day by having a sort of breakfast late at night, and I've just had a very big cup of coffee, so I'm all ready to go. Just by introduction, this is quite an interesting graph showing that the world since 1995, so what, 23 years ago, has started to change quite. The red line you can see there is the number of people globally wanting to get into tertiary education. And that red line looks quite likely to continue to rise and rise and rise. So lots of people wanting to study for a degree in the English language, and whichever path they choose, they're going to need the best possible preparation that we can offer in our foundation courses. So what do we want at
Hi there, everybody. We appear to have lost Robert at the moment, but we shall try and get him back. Apologies for this.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, that's okay. We can hear you.
Hello? Are we back again? I don't know what happened there, but I'm now back on the slide of what do we want our learners to be able to do? So obviously, apart from the main skills of listening, speaking, reading and writing, we do need them also to be able to master grammar, have a wide-ranging vocabulary, and listen and speak with good, clear pronunciation. And what specifically does EAP prepare the students for? Obviously, if they're going to enter the academic world, then they need to be able to understand lectures, follow handouts, read long and complex texts, and all the other skills that you can see there. But apart from that, we also need to prepare our students to be able to do thinking skills, from the very basic remembering, thinking, organizing, understanding what they've learned. We need to teach them how to argue, how to apply what they've learned, how to analyze, how to evaluate, and even how to imagine. And that complete set of linguistic skills and life skills is what we're going to try and put into our EAP programs. Over the course of the next 20 minutes, I'd like to look at the 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and see how we can balance our academic and general English skills. So in terms of listening, I asked my colleagues and I asked some of my classes, what are the issues that you have with listening? Why is listening so difficult? And some of the answers that teachers and students that it's immediate. You can't go back like you can when you're reading a text. If you don't know a word or you misunderstand a clause or a sentence, you can go back when you're reading. You can't do that when you're listening. Words don't sound like they look. Obviously, if you're pronouncing and listening to a word, it will have different features to if you're reading that word. So pharmaceutical is relatively easy to read and look at and understand. But if you hear that spoken, it comes out stressed in a particular way with all the other features of stream of speech. Chunking, stress, linking, elision, all of these aspects of pronunciation are pretty hard for our students to get a grip of when they're listening. Spoken discourse isn't as well organized and as clearly organized as written discourse. So we repeat more, we jump back, we have half sentences, we interrupt, and we carry on other people's sentences. All of these are hard for our students to get to grips with. And it's hard for us as teachers to actually help when students simply cannot hear, because we don't really know why they can't hear. We can surmise, we can try to find out, but we don't really know what's going in the brain going on inside the brain when we ask students to do a listening activity. The way we tend to teach listening is quite unnatural. We tend to get them to listen to audio with very few visual clues. And it's actually an interactive skill, which we normally associate with speaking, but which we try to teach and test in isolation. And as one of my students said, it's vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation all mixed up at the same time. That's what makes it particularly difficult. And we don't know which part of those 3 areas they're having trouble with. It's also extremely fast. Where I teach, we have learning outcomes. So I'm talking here about students who are at B1 plus early B2 level. And the learning outcomes, as expected, are to demonstrate an understanding of a short spoken text and apply the information in English for an academic purpose. They have to learn to identify the main points, speaker's purpose, attitude, etc. on familiar topics in extended discussions, and then they have to extract and reproduce key information from presentations. Now, all of those skills are quite difficult, and how we can really go about getting them to improve is to, if we distill those learning outcomes down to 2 areas, we can get them to raise their awareness of elements of pronunciation. So I've already mentioned stress, intonation, rhythm, sense groups, linking, etc. We can get them to look at the differences between written and spoken English and be aware of how important those differences are. And we can also look at what Caldwell calls the greenhouse, the garden, and the jungle. We tend to teach English very much in a slow, controlled greenhouse way at first. When we move into a more free practice stage, we might be teaching English in the garden, but it is still very controlled. But what we're actually preparing our students to do is to go out into the jungle. So in a way, we must find ways of trying to raise their awareness of what the English language really does sound like in free spoken contexts. In terms of listening strategies, we can obviously train them to listen for gist, main ideas, noting and note-taking. Now, these are two different skills which I think they need to develop. They need to develop the skill of note-taking, which is a linear, systematic way of taking notes in a lecture or in a discussion or in a seminar. But in terms of improving their listening skills, then noting, which is essentially just writing down everything you hear, is a useful skill for them to develop. It's only after they've seen what they've written down that they can then start to try and work out a little bit more about what they've probably understood. Getting students to work together in that noting stage of the lesson allows them to collaborate a little more closely in their listening activities as well. And again, that's reasonable preparation for what life is going to be like in the academic world. So the strategies we can give our students to do and develop are the ones that you can see on the slide there. We have pre-listening strategies, so thinking about what the audio might contain, what topics it might cover, what points might be made, activating their schemata so that they are involved in the topic or involved in the situation they're going to listen to. Listening for main ideas, for the number of people, for the range of topics. Again, noting and note-taking, looking for keywords, and listening also for the relationship between the people or the attitudes of the speaker or the way the conversation develops. I think a lot of students need to really understand the logic of conversation and how it develops, and that they can use as one of the strategies when they're trying to do their listening. The sort of activities we can use, I've touched on collaborative noting. The whole range of gap fill and close tests are worth using so that they feel that they're getting some sort of scaffolded support with their listening. Also just transcribing, writing down what they hear, and this can be at a sentence level or simply trying to listen to what they hear in a lecture or a conversation. Dictations, comprehension questions, true, false, etc. are all useful skills. But I think as many of these activities as possible which can be done working together or in pairs or small groups is going to help prepare them as well as possible for the academic world they're moving into. Just looking at a very simple activity here which raises awareness of pronunciation elements from both a listening and a speaking point of view. It's quite fun just to play around with sentences of this length, either as peer dictations where the students themselves are dictating them, or as teacher-led dictations. But in a very simple sentence like that with 3 or 4 clauses, you have got most of the key elements of stream of speech in English. We've got the linking, we've got the chunking, which words are going to be stressed. By stressing different words, how can you change the meaning of those sentences? You can mix the two sentences up and get the student to separate them, or you can do them, as I said, as just peer dictations. You can also then use these very straightforward sentences for a little bit of discussion about, on a more critical level, why does a crocodile have no lips? Why is it good to hold its breath for an hour? Why does a panda spend 16 hours simply eating bamboo, etc.? I think the point I'm trying to make here is that if you overwhelm your students with too many language skills, with new language content and academic skills all in one fell swoop, we do risk the possibility of simply overwhelming them. So getting them to really work on the listening both in class and out of class is always going to be of big help in the foundation years. Just turning to speaking, again, I ask my students exactly the same question. Now, why is speaking difficult? And some of the issues that they come up with is, I am not understood. I find it very hard to speak to other people. They struggle to understand me. They are not intelligible. I make too many mistakes. And it's true that a number of students at a sort of B1 plus, early B2 level do have 3 or 4 errors per. They are seriously aware of that. They also lack ideas. You ask them to talk about a particular topic, and either because of their age or the linguistic level, they lack ideas. And if you lack ideas, you lack fluency because and then you sort of hit a brick wall. Shyness comes into it. We're talking about students who are sort of 19 to 23 years old. They are shy, particularly when they're using a foreign language. And they just lack practice. They lack practice in speaking. And again, speaking is a hard thing to practice outside of the classroom, unless you're working in a completely immersion-based location where you can go home and talk to the host family, or go and talk to your other colleagues or classmates in the English language. In terms of our learning outcomes here, we have 3 for speaking. We need them to be able to participate in social conversations for everyday purposes. We need them to be able to exchange information in small groups. And the key one is what comes at the end of their 18-week semester, is when they are asked to make a short oral presentation in English. Now, this oral presentation is 6 to 8 minutes, but really is a serious assessment of how good their English is. Getting them to be able to sustain that length of monologue with slides and good content is a good assessment of where their English is at the time. There's a little synthesis of what the learning outcomes are. And again, we're looking at ways of raising their awareness of elements of pronunciation, pausing, chunking, stressing, working on particular sounds, and working on their intonation. And in terms of speaking strategies, we try to develop their ability to listen and respond. So it is part of a two-way conversation, part of a two-way interaction. We work on getting them to echo and reword to show interest in the dialogue so that they can extend conversations with their classmates. We work on them getting to bluff and find workarounds. So if they don't know the word in English, how can they say it in a different way? We try and introduce them to useful exponents, particularly the signpost sort of language, which is so useful for making oral presentations. And we spend a lot of time simply working on their confidence using the English language. And confidence can come from being able to do a 1-sentence presentation, a 1-minute presentation, a short unprepared presentation, telling a story, telling an anecdote, telling a joke. And the strategies we like them to develop are, in terms of sheer learning skill, getting them to understand phonemic description, how the phonemic chart works. That just allows them to be able to work on the sounds which they have particular trouble with. We like to do a lot of work on single sentence delivery. So just working at sentence level, getting them to really say a sentence as well as they possibly can. I think that once they've understood how to really stretch their standards high at a single sentence level, they can then push that up when they start to do slightly longer interactions and oral presentations. We work on getting them to check understanding when they're speaking, making sure that the person they are speaking to understands what they're saying, and using eye contact and good body language. Another area is getting them to speak as opposed to reading aloud. Again, a lot of them, when we're trying to do assessment of them, where they have to video record a short conversation, there's a huge tendency to read a script rather than speak from their own heart. So that's an area we need to look at. And getting them to actually have something to say. And again, this comes down to ideas. Where are they going to get those ideas from? From themselves, or from their reading, from their listening to colleagues, listening to classmates, etc. So in terms of activities, I think whatever level you're teaching at, but certainly when we're teaching B1 plus, B2 students, we need to be able to scaffold those discussions. We can't just expect them to launch into a sensible discussion of 5 or 6 minutes without some sort of help, some sort of scaffolding, some sort of situational language, functional exponents to help them. putting them in situations where they have to listen and then show understanding by responding in a logical and appropriate way. And then in terms of getting those learning outcomes for oral presentations, right from the beginning of the semester, we like them to do instant presentations, 1-minute talks, 2-slide talks, and film as much of it as they can. So use their phones, use the cameras on their phones, get them to see how good they are, what their areas of unintelligibility are. And I think the only way they can really assess that is to listen to themselves and see themselves. So we do encourage them to film as many of their conversation and presentations as possible. And just a very simple sort of activity to get that is getting them to describe the rules of a sport, or getting them to explain the hydrology cycle, getting them to describe a healthy life cycle. These talks can take 2 to 3 minutes, but again, at this B2 level, they're incredibly useful tools for just building their confidence, building their ability to logically string ideas, opinions, and facts together. Hello. Another area which is of use is visuals, and we've been using Empower as our general course book, and we've been combining that with another book for the EAP side of things. And visuals are of great use. This is an example of just a big picture, which allows our students to begin to think about the concept of communication. Father and son sitting in an airport, both with their mobiles out, both probably doing different things. But again, it's a nice springboard into a discussion where students can bring their own knowledge of the world, their own knowledge of communications, their own knowledge of gadgets into the activity. Another one would be something like this, which comes from actually an English for medicine title, but is a picture which illustrates the concept of pain quite nicely. What I like about visuals is there are no words getting in the way. There's just a straight interpretation and a gut reaction to an image. And we can use an image like this to build up vocabulary, brainstorm ideas, brainstorm ways of describing pain, discussions about pain thresholds, about surgery, about medicine, etc. So using the visuals just to generate language through the students' own ideas and their knowledge of the world that they bring to it is a useful strategy. Is use of visuals like this. This began as a project around the theme of courage. And we were looking to try and discuss the psychology of courage with some quite reading passages about the psychology of courage. But as our way into it, we use this image, which is of a plane crash back in the early 80s in the center of Washington, where famously on live television, a bystander leapt into the freezing cold water and saved one of the survivors of the plane crash. Now, again, we're using the images to generate the language, to give us the background. We then looked at the headline in order to get some more understanding of the context of the heroism. But then we looked at the bystander and why he did what he decided to do. And that all worked perfectly as a lead into, as I say, quite a complex reading about the psychology of being a bystander. Now, just before we look at that particular text about being a bystander, again, some of the issues connected with reading in a course. If you don't know what topics to choose, because you might have 20 students all heading into 20 different academic areas later in the year or later next year, providing a text which has too many unknown words can be quite discouraging. So one of the issues that our students often are worried about is the sheer number of new words in a text. They're worried by the complex structure of the text. They're worried by the length. The sophistication of the ideas is also an area where they begin to sort of show a little bit of weakness and not noticing necessarily the difference between opinion and fact. How can we get our students to engage with the text if all of these things are going on around it? And how can we get them to actually read for pleasure, which is a skill that we know then they're going to have if they're going to really start to seriously increase their linguistic level. As I said, this is the psychology text that we were trying to feed our students into. And as you can see, it's a very dense text, very short but quite dense, and is essentially looking at the psychology behind bystanding. And again, if we can address these texts from a end user point of view rather than an expert point of view, then I think it makes it easier for our students to break into what is essentially quite a complex set of ideas. So trying to use concrete general stories and context as our lead in allows us to balance the general with the more specific. So we've touched on reading, we've touched on listening and speaking. We'll just finish with a brief overview of writing. And again, dealing with the students that we deal with at the moment. So we're talking about classes of 18 to 20, age range, as I say, late teens, early 20s. When they come to doing their academic writing, we have a lack of originals, we have a lack of organization, a lack of an ability to evaluate. We have problems dealing with register and style, and also just being able to write at a good enough speed. And again, all of these are areas where our assessment is going to be quite strong. So important that they get to grips with these areas of writing. A brief activity just to show you one way of getting into the importance of topic sentences, for example, is this little activity we've got here. This is called the importance of English. And rather than give them the whole text to build, we provide them with some scaffolding, as I've already talked about. So here we have 3 sentences, which actually we dictated to the students. So English is the world's most important language, currently spoken by around 1.5 billion people. Second sentence, it is widely felt that the best way to learn it is in an English-speaking environment. And the third sentence, there is a wide range of options available for students wanting to improve their English. By giving them these 3 ideas, we've also given them 3 topic sentences. And from each of those sentences, they can then start to pull out second, third, and fourth sentences, which will help them build up a paragraph. And I think what we're doing here is just giving them that little bit of scaffolding to help them move from sentence level to paragraph level and finally to essay level, 250 to 300 words. I found when I did this activity with my class, they were surprised how important the topic sentence is just in feeding logically content into the second, fourth sentences of the paragraph. So this sort of thing works very nicely, combining the skills of both listening as a dictation, writing the sentences out, assessing them, and then building from their own paragraphs and ultimately their own essays. Now we're getting close to the end. It looks like, yeah, 22:58. It's been quite interesting because I haven't really had much audio feedback. Obviously, I've been trying to follow the chat through the line as we've been going. I'm glad you've all found lots of things to talk about. Do you have any questions at all?
Can you hear me? You can hear me. That's great. So I've just changed microphone, changed headsets. So hopefully now people can hear me. Thanks very much. Thanks a lot for that, Robert. I've got a few questions here that we managed to pull out of the chat box, so let me just read out a couple to you here. The first one was about what does intelligibility mean in EAP? A couple of people mentioned that. Do you want to sort of try and describe what you mean by that?
Intelligibility is just when we're talking about pronunciation and we have someone who has a very strong pronunciation which might inhibit their ability to be comprehended, we're getting into the areas of intelligibility. You can never usually get rid of all accent, but what you must do is try and get your intelligibility level to a point where you are being as clear as you possibly can be, particularly when you're obviously speaking. And a lot of students feel that they can't become more intelligible than they are. But I think a lot of people have seen over time that by really working on your pronunciation as an integrated part of your teaching, you can get students to a much higher and an acceptable level of.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of questions also about in the age of recorded lectures and distance learning, is note-taking still relevant? And another person, a couple of other people mentioned about note-taking. Is that still relevant?
I think it's still relevant because I agree that we get our handouts and PowerPoints, and that often they send the PDF of the lecture afterwards. But as an academic skill in helping you remember afterwards what you've listened to, note-taking has to remain an important academic skill.
Okay, I think we've got time just for maybe a couple, if I can squeeze a couple more in. Writing motivation in EAP, do you have any tips on that? Again, a couple of people mentioned that it's really difficult to motivate the students with academic writing.
I think because if you're not writing about a topic which you are genuinely interested in and are keen to do the research in, then I agree absolutely. It is very hard to get that motivation out of people. I do tend to prefer shorter writing as possible. Treating an essay plan as just as important as a piece of extended writing, because often we can see from the plan that yes, they've done the research, they've thought through the ideas, they've worked out the structure, they've got their coherence lined up, and then if they want to not continue to write it fully and move on to another plan, I'm often quite happy with that. But making sure that the choice of topic is one that they can engage with, they can research, and it's not a mundane one that they feel they've done before. I think that's the best way to get the motivation.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock here now, so that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid. But thank you very much for joining us, everybody that's joined today. There are further webinars that we have in this series, and they're running from today until the 2nd of November. So please do check out the other talks that we have at cambridge.org/academic-English. It's all about academic English, and you can still register for these talks. There is another talk starting in half an hour, and the recording of today's webinar should hopefully be added to the conference page where you registered in about a week's time, and other talks as well will be added in about a week's time as soon as they've finished. And the final thing is, please don't forget to download your certificate of attendance, which you should be able to see is on the screen now, and you just click on the link there. Apologies for the little interruption there in the middle that we had with the sound, but hopefully I think the majority of it was absolutely fine. And finally, again, thank you to Robert. Thanks everyone as well for attending. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are.